And welcome back to the CBS 42 Special Report, a community conversation.
And tonight we're joined by a panel of distinguished guests, including city leaders, lawmakers, educators, police, social activists, a bunch of people. They're all here being with us today.
Yeah, we appreciate their time so much. As we mentioned at the beginning of our program, we are streaming live on Facebook, and we asked the viewers to submit some questions. I've got some of those here. I'm going to run through those and ask the panel to react here. Tom Hemrick, who's watching tonight, writes in, having more officers get out of the patrol car and walk the streets they drive on, he thinks this can improve community relations. Let's talk about that. Do you guys think that actually getting policemen out of cars and walking the streets helps that?
I would take that on and say definitely. And so we're doing more walking now. It's not something we just started, though. We just had a big community walk just last week, and we're asking our officers to walk also, to walk more. But a lot of that depends on call volume. So if an officer is going to call after call after call, they can't get out the car and just walk around because there's somebody on the other end of a 911 phone call that's waiting on that officer to arrive. But when they can, we want them to get out the vehicles, engage the citizens, walk into that business, talk to that business owner. That does two things. One, it helps to build relationships, but also it helps to give that officer a sense of what's normal. And they get to know who's in that community. So when something is out of place, that officer understands it. They know that this guy stands on the corner and sells CDs. I know him. I just talked to him last week. So now when they get a call, they know that's just Johnny. Let me go talk to Johnny. And you don't have this stranger danger kind of engagement that leads to negative consequences.
Yeah, that's a great point right there. That's what Carmen was asking too, Sherry. How do you start the conversation with your kids?
Yes.
I wanted to add something that we learned recently at the Race, Community, and Law Enforcement Conference that we hosted at the Civil Rights Institute in conjunction with the FBI regionally. And we had National Director James Comey, speaking to us. And we had a group of recruits who were in training for police work and cadets. And we had young people. And I think this is very much an issue that is of concern with respect to our young people. As a mother and a grandmother, I certainly feel that, and any of us here who are parents. And so one of the things that was very revealing, the young people on the panel indicated that when they were in elementary school, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth graders, they all wanted to grow up and be police and firemen. By the time they got to middle school, that had totally changed. They had seen things in their community that made them fear police, and police are obviously afraid of young black men. And so we need to have more conversation, more communication. We saw in one of the recent cases that the police officer had no knowledge of the individual that he apprehended, and it ended in a tragic death. So we must have much more communication. We certainly are trying to do what we can to help train young people, but also provide the venue for police and youth to come together.
Is there a hesitancy, given the state of what's going on in the last month for police? And I want to ask you this, Mr. Bohackle, do police want to do that? And does something need to change so that officers don't feel like, well, I'm just, you know, I'm trying to do the beat and get to know people, but there's this concern about ambushes. Is that a real concern for members of the FOP?
Yes, it is. However, we signed up to do this job, and regardless of what's going on, everyone that puts on a uniform, no matter what the color of the police uniform is, they know what they're getting into, and the job didn't come to them, they went to the job. So that being said, that does not mean that they should be treated or disrespected either, but you've got to treat people with respect in order to give respect. So it's a two-way street. If you just come out and you throw on your uniform and you go at it and you talk down and disrespectful to the citizen, then if he's disrespectful to you, you can't just say, okay, I'm putting you in jail for disorderly conduct, and then there you go.
Respect goes both ways.
That's exactly.
Let me say this. I'm gonna say this. I mean this. We got our first black mayor in Birmingham because of Bonita Carter case. People might have forgot that. But that's how we got our first black mayor of the city of Birmingham, for having that young lady as Joyce Sands. But the irony thing, when you see these highly publicized things come on TV, I don't care how you dress it. Let's look at Baltimore. All 5 officers walked. All of them walked. Most of them walked because of the fact that, like he said, the prosecutor, all of them are favored toward the police. is you against the whole segment. And I believe that all lives matter. Matter of fact, I just passed a bill saying that killing police officers would be a hate crime because it's attacking one particular segment of the population. Whether you're black, Hispanic, or Jew, if you target a certain segment of the population, it ought to be considered a hate crime. I'm passing that bill. But I'm gonna say this. The chief said it very clearly. If you don't know this man selling CDs every day, like this man got killed selling, if they knew that guy, they might not have shot him. But anytime you see on TV where they shoot a man, then they say he had a gun, they can't get the gun out the pocket themselves. And the man, that guy don't get prosecuted, you can have some more riots. Because of the fact that these young guys are not gonna take this stuff. The older people are coming.
That was my feeling coming into the night was I do the news nightly, and I don't remember the police officers who commit these crimes being prosecuted. I couldn't remember any of them, but we were talking in the commercial break, and Joyce, about there are some prosecutions out there. Do you feel like there's progress still that needs to be made there? And tell us about maybe some that we've heard, and why don't we hear about all of them?
Well, you know, I feel really good about prosecutions. We prosecute consistently. We got a conviction in a case 2 weeks ago involving a police officer, a chief in this case, in a small Alabama town who handcuffed an individual in the backseat of his patrol car and beat him. And the jury in that case convicted. But where I might differ a little bit with Representative Rogers is I see prosecutors bringing these cases. In Baltimore, they brought the cases and the juries chose not to convict. And that, I think, speaks to the high level of proof that our criminal justice system requires in these cases. It is appropriate, I think, in most cases. Sometimes we see things that make us uneasy. Sometimes juries don't convict. I think that goes back to your comments about needing to be unafraid to have conversations about race. They're uncomfortable. These are difficult conversations, talking about what the jury did in Baltimore. And I think we have to approach these with a little sense of who we are, give each other room to maybe make mistakes in these conversations, but to be willing to have them so we can understand each other better in the future.
Van?
Yeah. The guy who brought in Baltimore was a black prosecutor. Now he's ready to put her out of office because he made the charges.
And I see a number of fingers, a number of hands up, but I'm going to ask you guys to take a break. We're about a little more than halfway there. We still have much time for you guys to get your comments in. We need to take a break here. Coming up, we'll talk about how we're helping our children deal with racism, including the grown-up conversations some mothers and fathers are forced to have with their very young kids.
You have to respect authority, and you have to respect yourself. If you don't respect yourself, you can't respect authority. And you have to be taught that.
That we'd talk to each other more, that police and people would talk to each other more and get to know each other more. I think that's one of the keys to all of our problems.